All right, we are live again. Hey, guys. Glad to be back for round 2 here of this amazing training we're going to bring to you guys. In case you didn't see the first video, I just want to welcome you guys, those who are part of the Bulletproof Business community and our Unleashed Academy family, and really excited to share with you guys the topic today, world-class ops and how to get free from the weeds. And this is more relevant than it has ever been, right? This is really where the market leaders who emerge from this crisis and those who get relegated to the history pages of business are separated. It really is here. And what you guys don't realize is hiding in the operations of your business is the easiest and best source to stabilize and grow your revenue in the midst of this crisis. And so I'm really excited to share that with you guys and dig into this training today. So if you're here with us, let us know in the comments. Let us know that you're watching live and that you are excited about this training. Let us know where you're coming from. Let us know your wins and let us know any questions or struggles you guys are having. And we're happy to assist any way we can. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and we are going to get started on this training today. Here we go. All right, I'm going to share this desktop. And that, and you guys should be able to see my screen. Let me see 1 second here. There we go. Unleashed Academy, like I've said before, this is actually typically a private client training we would reserve, but we're bringing it a little bit further out to our Bulletproof Business community today to help support you guys during this crisis. So welcome guys to this week's training. And we're going to talk about world-class operations today. I don't know about you, but that gets me excited. But some business owners who I know are watching this, when you hear the term operations, you don't get excited. In fact, it actually maybe brings up some inner turmoil for you. And I've been a part of enough 6- and 7-figure ventures to know that a lot of them have what I like to call operations mayhem. Operations mayhem. This is where issues often get solved with duct tape, and we're hoping that customers can't see it even though they can. So we know that internally our operations are a mess and we're constantly fighting fires and putting out problems and fixing things that are breaking. And some of that's the normal cadence of entrepreneurship. But at the end of the day, if you have operations mayhem going on, it does not create the experience for you, your team, or your customers that is really in your heart. And here's what happens when you have operations mayhem going on. You can't scale your sales because you and your team's energy is tapped just by fulfillment. You're fighting fires all the time, as I said, and there's all these issues. And before you know it, you get to the end of a day or the week and you weren't able to really focus on growing your business. You were stuck in maintenance mode. How many of you have ever felt that way in your business? You have felt operations mayhem, keeping you stuck kind of where you are. I know that was the case for me in many of my entrepreneurial ventures, right? And so when this happens, when this is the case, when operations mayhem is going on in your business, you end up with inconsistent results. And that creates unsatisfied customers, loads of extra service work, and ultimately churn, which is not good for your business model, right? This doesn't make you feel good as a business owner. It doesn't make your customers feel good. It doesn't create a high-performing, convicted team. And you just end up doing a bunch of extra work that you didn't really need to do in the first place. And ultimately, you end up losing some of your very best customers. And that churn rate really, really gives a hit to your profitability and your ability to grow. Right. And a lot of entrepreneurs I talk with stuck in this phase of business tell me how they hate feeling like a middle manager or a micromanager, right? They're constantly delegating to the delegators and passing projects that don't quite work out. And then, things get off track and projects get off track and timelines don't get hit and clients get disappointed. And they're constantly stuck in this management mode when really what they ultimately want from their business is freedom. They want to focus on driving growth. They didn't become an entrepreneur to be a middle manager. They want to be a CEO. They either would love to either be able to elevate to the CEO role or at the very least go back to a one-man show where at least they got to spend some of their time working on the craft that got them in the business in the first place. All right. So if you're in either of those two categories, then you may be subject to operations mayhem. And this is something we've got to fix in your business before we can really scale it. And I just want to say from the bottom of my heart, entrepreneur, I hear you. And I have been there in the past businesses and ventures I have had the privilege of co-founding. Like many entrepreneurs, I was pretty good at sales, but operations almost took me out of the game. It was what almost made me quit. And I don't want that for you. And there's no reason for that to be the thing that takes you out of the game. We can fix this, and we can have world-class operations. And I really believe, guys, that the real problem here is that we cannot scale a business without great operations. And the key to scale is actually figuring out how to create simplified, streamlined operations. Because once you have those in place, you can focus on driving more business, knowing that you and your team can support it, and that the people you sell to will have an amazing experience with you, and they'll want to tell more people, and the engine just continues to pick up momentum at that point. So guys, the key to scale is not another funnel in a lot of cases. It's not another big flash in the pan marketing campaign. It is dialing in your operations and making them simple and streamlined and efficient. And when you do that, man, you have something that's really scalable. And this is a Karen Martin quote that I love. She says this, she says that chaos is the enemy of any organization that strives to be outstanding. So we've got to kick mayhem, operations mayhem, and chaos out of our organization so that we can be the outstanding organization we know we're called to be and really be the market leaders that we're supposed to be. So let me take you guys into a couple operations myths I often hear that hold business owners and entrepreneurs back from truly creating that simplified, streamlined operations that we talked about. And the biggest one that I find is just this misconception that is so prevalent in entrepreneurial world. And that's that operations is less important than sales and marketing, right? It's less important than sales and marketing. And this is just not true. This may be somewhat true in the very, very early stages of starting a business. But once you have really a multi-six-figure business, or even at a multi-six-figure run rate, you actually have to turn your attention a little bit from constantly driving sales and marketing to dialing in a great operational system. Otherwise, you will never scale that over the long term. Sales do not solve all problems. And I know a lot of entrepreneurs who have been groomed to believe this myth, and it's really the thing that's holding them back from building a true business. Because at the end of the day, if all you know how to do is sell and market, you have a hustle, not a business, right? You have a hustle and not a business. And I mean hustle from multiple angles, okay? So we've got to get rid of this misconception. Sales and marketing is not more important than operations. They're all equally important. We need strong sales and marketing, strong operations, and strong finance, and a strong team in place if we want to scale. Businesses that don't focus on operations go out of business. That's how I like to say it. It may not be today. It may not be a year from now. The guru you see on Facebook today might look like he's just flush with cash and all he does is market and there's nothing behind the curtain. But I can guarantee you those people are going out of business at some point. The market runs out of goodwill for those people eventually. And the best marketing in the world will not make up for poor operations. Okay. And I find that really a big differentiator between people who are serious about business are those who actually care about their operations versus those who are just obsessed with sales and marketing, right? And this is really another important point we have to make is that operations is how you keep the promises you make in your marketing, okay? And so if you don't keep the promises you make, at some point you are going to get sued or you are going to get booted out by competitors who do a better job than you, okay? So you've got to get good at operations. And this is what I think is so interesting, right? Sustainable marketing actually requires your team be convicted that your product is world-class, okay? So you wanna know the easiest way to sell your product? to get your team to sell your product, to get your customers to sell your product to other people. It's to be amazing at delivering a world-class product and customer experience. And that's operations in a nutshell. And what's so powerful is when we get our operations in order, your team gets convicted that you truly deliver something that is world-class to your customers, and they will go to the ends of the earth to sell it to them because they have belief that it is really what's best for your customer. And this is what separates the good from the great, guys. When your team and your customers see you delivering something truly special, delivering it consistently, getting amazing results for the people you serve, you end up with raving fans, tons of social proof, and a convicted team that will sell your product to the moon and back. It's not hard, guys, to sell a guaranteed cure for a sickness. And when your team believes that you have cracked the code and found the cure for your customer's problem, they will go crazy bonkers to help you sell it. Okay, so this is why we have to have great operations in place. So here's the paradigm shift I want to lead us to today, entrepreneur and business owner. And it's this, that operations, my definition for operations, very big picture here, is this. It's this simple. And I hope that you will come to embody this as well. Is that operations equals an obsession with becoming better. An obsession with becoming better. And I love this definition because at the end of the day, this separates the good from the great. Are you actually obsessed with becoming better? Not just marketing, not just pretending, not just putting up a front, but actually being superior and better and getting better every single day. And when you allow this to get in your heart as a leader and you carry this to your team will over time build an operational machine that is highly efficient, highly consistent, highly profitable, because you're just obsessed with getting better. When you become obsessed with creating a system and delivers a world-class experience to your customers, they will reward you. And by the way, this is how you attract A players. A players are attracted to cultures where there is an obsession with becoming better because that's what they want to. And really, guys, this is how we create more with less, is operational efficiency, moving the needle 1% better every single week, every single day. So there's the paradigm shift. And I think it's so important that we take this to heart as leaders. So I want you to imagine with me for a second. Imagine with me your operations being world-class. Imagine having the ability to step out of day-to-day tasks and see your customers get even better results. How good would that feel? Imagine having a convicted team that believes you are better than competitors and constantly strives to raise the bar. Imagine reoccurring issues that are eating your time away, getting solved for the good or systemized away. Does that sound pretty good? Because that is the fruit of focusing on world-class ops. And so in the rest of this training, that's what we're going to do, is focus on how to create those world-class ops so we can get you to have these things I just painted the picture for you to have. So here are some world-class ops principles. Specifically today, I want to train you guys on 4 principles as well as some practices that are going to help you guys begin to create world-class operations. And so without further ado, let's go ahead and dig in. Principle number 1. Principle number 1 is this. You must perfect one profitable product that solves a painful problem for one perfect patron. Say that 5 times fast, right? That's a little limerick right there, a tongue twister. No, but seriously, guys, as you know, kind of cute as that saying is, I tried to condense a really important principle here into a short statement, and that's this. If you want to scale world-class operations, you have got to perfect one, not many, one profitable product that solves a painful problem for one perfect patron. And I see so many entrepreneurs rebelling against this idea and then wondering why they get stuck on the 6-figure hamster wheel, doing the same thing over and over, constantly overloaded with too much time, constantly having inefficient or missing systems. And they just can't seem to figure out that in order to scale, you actually have to simplify, right? To remind you guys, in our process, we talk about purposeful positioning in a very specific way, right? We say you need to know who your perfect patron is, right? Then you need to, at a deep level, understand what is their painful problem, right? What is the painful problem that they have? Then you have to understand their promised land. Where do they want to go? And what promises can you make to them that will appeal to them? And then, and only then, can you actually position your product and what you do as the bridge out of their painful problem and into their promised land? And that's when you elaborate on your process or your product or your superpower, so to speak, right? And that's where you need to have a proven process in place that they can see will help take them out of their painful problem into their promised land. So again, that's how we think about positioning in business. And I have a lot of clients who have gone through our positioning exercises, and yet when we come back to their operations, suddenly we realize that there's all of this inefficiency in their business model because they haven't streamlined their operations to perfect one product that solves a painful problem for their perfect patron, right? And this is where in operations, now we have to start eliminating waste. We're getting rid of systems we don't need, stopping, so to speak, half-baked products that we're putting out to market and focusing on one profitable product that solves a painful problem. And so guys, we got to stop being Doc Ock entrepreneur. This is where most entrepreneurs that I work with are. They've got 8 arms and they're constantly, wrangling different things. They're slinging out different offers. They're targeting different groups of people. They have 5 different marketing strategies. They're spinning plates over here. They're constantly dipping between the finances of their business and the customer service of their business and the marketing of their business. They have 8 arms and there's really nothing focused or scalable. And we've got to stop this if we want to scale, right? And if you can't give away responsibility and you're finding that you have to micromanage all the time, it may very well be because you do not have a simple enough of a model and your positioning is not clear. And this is your responsibility, business owner, to get this right so that you can empower a team and build the right systems. So how do we do this? Here's the thing. I want to just remind us of what I already said, which is that scale equals simplicity. Simplicity. If you want more impact, more clients, systems and team, and more profit, you're going to have to narrow down the perfect patron you serve, have a simplified offer, streamline how you fulfill that offer down to what really matters, and then end up generating more revenue and more profit from less effort. And that comes back to CLTV, which we'll talk about in a little bit. So here are a couple keys on this. Number one, remember, you need to know your perfect patron because this allows for leveraged fulfillment. If you're trying to serve everyone, you will serve no one in a world-class way. And in order to serve someone in a world-class way, you have to know what they value, which means you must have a specific type of person in mind that has a specific promised land in mind and a specific problem they want solved. And then and only then can you create a system or a process to bridge that gap. A lot of people are building 4 different rickety bridges for 4 different types of people rather than building one incredibly solid bridge that is designed to bridge one gap, one problem, and get people to one promised land. You must get this right if you want to leverage your fulfillment. If you want more leverage, if you want more return for less work, you must know your perfect patron, what their painful problem is, and what their promised land is, and design your process with only that perfect patron in mind. And that is, in my mind, the person who you can help achieve the biggest breakthrough at scale. Great example of this would be like a marketing agency. Some marketing agencies I know are great at helping people get started, but they're not so good at working with big corporate clients. They don't love it. They don't, it's not their sweet spot, their competencies. And yet I see these people still taking on these big, complex corporate jobs because they think they're more profitable. But at the end of the day, they get so caught up in these projects, they can't serve at a high level the masses of people who need them, who are just starting out. In the same way, some marketing agencies are in this place where they actually really are best positioned to help someone who already has momentum behind their brand, right? And they just simply add fuel to the fire. And then those people are starting out with newbies and then wondering why they can't get great results, and they have all these service issues. That's an example from a recent client I worked with. But I just want to share that with you guys because that is a great example of a non-leveraged fulfillment. They have to have different processes for the newbie than you do for the big corporate client. Well, none of those processes are going to be very streamlined and efficient. Your team's not going to know how to optimize them. And at the end of the day, you're going to have to constantly micromanage every single element of the process, and you can't scale that. So we need to learn to be more selective on purpose. And this is what we must do with the perfect patron. Another thing you got to be thinking about in this arena is your product profitable? How do you create a profitable product? Because a profitable product ensures that your pricing supports world-class operations. Having world-class operations is not cheap, and it certainly isn't free. So you've got to make sure that there is leverage and margin in your pricing model to support your positioning. And if there isn't, you may need to rework that. Great question to ask is, can you deliver the level of service needed at scale at your current prices? And if you don't know the answer to that question, then you're going to find it very difficult to scale. Okay. So you need to know if your product is profitable. Factor in the elements of what does it take to service this? How much time? What tools and resources do we need? And again, with that perfect patron in mind, you can know what elements to include so that you end up with not doing things that your customer doesn't care about, and you end up with more profit on the back end. We'll talk about that more in just a second, but this is huge. Perfect patron and a profitable product. You have to be thinking about both of those. And here's the thing, guys, when we do this, when we design a one profitable product for a perfect patron that solves a painful problem, then we can get more efficient. We can start to speak and sell only to ideal customers, which makes our sales and marketing more efficient. Makes us more efficient with our time and our messaging. We can deliver only the outcome those people most want. And instead of focusing on all of these outcomes that they don't want or don't care about, then because their experience is amazing, you can retain them as lifelong customers, which again, we'll talk about more in a minute. And then lastly, you're going to achieve more profit from less effort if you will do this. So I can't stress this enough. So many people buck this part of the process, but you have to go back and revisit your positioning. And at the end, I'm going to recommend you do that with our exercise, the 5 Ps. But this is so critical that you do this. And that is how you create world-class operations that are streamlined and simplified. That's step 1, is you must design a profitable product for one perfect patron that solves a painful problem. Principle number 2. Who's ready for principle number 2? Hopefully you guys are getting tons of notes in at this point. Here we go. Principle 2. Entrepreneur, it is time to assign ownership of operations. If you're going to elevate to the CEO role, then it is very likely that operations is not something that can be undefined anymore. See, up to this point, when you were playing Doc Ock, operations was something you could kind of just step in where you needed and then step back out and step back in and step back out. But really, to go to the next level, there has to be someone who fully owns this side of your business. Somebody must be accountable and own this end to end. And what I find is that a lot of business owners make a huge mistake here, which is that they delegate out little pieces of ops, right? But that model actually doesn't scale very well, because what they end up doing is being a middle manager. And so they're trying to be the CEO, but they end up middle managing all these little pieces of operations. And because they're delegated rather than owned, which there's a big difference, delegated means, hey, I gave this to you, now you need to bring it back to me when it's done or when you have questions. Owned means that person is responsible to see it through to completion, right? If you delegate little pieces of operations out, at some point, you're going to end up with a decision load that is unsustainable, because you're going to be the one who's constantly going to have to take service calls, make decisions about what to do with clients, when to refund, when does this person, what do we do with this client, what do we do? And your phone's going to be blowing up and your email is going to be blowing up all the time. And even though you delegated it and you're paying for people to do all these different pieces, you are still owning it. You're still owning it. So you're still actually doing all the same work. You're just paying for it more. Okay, so you got to assign ownership of operations. And here's some options for that. You have options. One option is that one of the owners owns it. And honestly, guys, some of you right now are trying to just delegate your operations and it's not working. In the stage of business you're at, you just actually need to own this. If you have the unique ability for it, or maybe you have multiple co-founders, one of the owners might need to just own this because it's one of the most important parts of your business. And if you don't show extreme care here, you will lose your customer base. And that is huge. Your customers want intimacy from you as the owner. They want your involvement. And unless you're a huge company, it's actually not unsustainable for you to stay plugged in here if you have the unique ability for it. Okay, until you're in a position to do 1, 2, or 3. Okay, so my encouragement is if you're just currently delegating this, you might just need to realize that you need to own it and truly own it. Doesn't mean you can't delegate things. You just need to know that you have to own this end to end in this stage of your business. That's option number 1. At some point, though, you're going to need to step to number 2 or number 3, which is number 2, your executive assistant becomes your ops rock star. And I've seen a lot of CEOs do this successfully, where they actually transition their executive assistant as being their extension into operations. The good thing is with this is it doesn't fully remove you from operations, but your executive assistant becomes the one who goes and gathers all the data, manages all the things that you can't manage, and then only brings the really critical, most relevant stuff to you. And we have a process for this we can teach you guys at another time, but this is kind of the second phase of doing this. This way you're not, by the way, the difference here is you're not just delegating out little tiny pieces of the operations puzzle and then trying to manage them everywhere. You have one single point of contact for everything that is operations, right? That person is gathering all the data, all the numbers, all the feedback, all the problems, and then you have one point of contact. And this is a little bit more ideal than number 1. It gets you a little more removed from operations. And then finally, the third is obviously you need to at some point attract and hire an A-player COO, a chief operations officer. And this is somebody who loves creating an incredible customer experience. And this person is going to have to be a really strategic, well thought out hire. You're not going to want to do shoot from the hip hiring on this one. You're going to really want to make sure you do the right hire and that they are an A player. So those are 3 options for how you can assign ownership of operations. We'll dig deeper into this a little bit in some of the exercises. Number three, principle number 3 for today, guys, is this. How do we build world-class operations? Well, we have to collaboratively craft a customer experience, And this is key, guys, because I see so many CEOs, so many entrepreneurs who try to understand their operations and duct tape it all together, but they've never actually brought the necessary parties into communication with them about their customer experience. They've never gotten the requisite amount of collaboration to really simplify and streamline this. This is really important, guys, super important. So let me share 2 groups of people that you should be collaborating with on your customer experience. And number 1 is maybe the most obvious one, which is you should be collaborating with your customers. You should be collaborating with your customers. And I'm like shell-shocked by how many people I know who their operations is mayhem and they don't have systems and they're kind of uncertain why their churn rate is so high. And when you dig down into it, they haven't actually asked their customers what they want. And this is mind-blowing to me. Do you know what your customers actually care about? Do you know what makes up a great customer experience, not in your mind, but in the mind of your perfect patron, your customer? When you know what they care about, you can focus on delivering an experience catered only to that and not focus on all the non-essential, energy-sucking things that you could do, but that your customer ultimately doesn't care about. Okay. And this is really key. So to do this, you can simply survey past customers, ask them what they care about, ask them what they liked, ask them what they didn't like, ask them what it is that they wish you had done better. And when you do this, you're going to get incredible collaborative data back from your customers that's going to help you optimize your operations and really streamline and simplify. Get rid of all the stuff they don't care about and focus on the stuff that they do. Okay. And this is really key, right? So I'm going to teach you guys in the final and fourth point how to create a feedback loop with your current customers. And this is where you're not just working with past customers, but you actually insert feedback loops intentionally into your process. Whereas customers are working with you, they're having the constant opportunity to give you feedback on how things are going, so you can preemptively solve problems before they become a big deal. And you can continue to optimize and find the holes and bottlenecks in your process and plug them with the right solution. Okay. So you need to create feedback loops with your current customers. This is how you collaborate with your customers on creating an amazing experience. Okay. So some of this, guys, is going to be thinking about their onboarding. It's going to be thinking about and how to create raving fans out of your customers. That's the goal, right? So a couple things here, guys. When you do this right, you will create raving fans and customers for life, which is going to increase CLTV. Now, I said this phrase earlier, but it's very important for your business model, and it stands for customer lifetime value. Okay. And this is one of the most important metrics in your business, because front end revenue, in other words, acquiring new customers, is the hardest type of revenue to secure. Do you know what the best and easiest source of revenue for your business is? Bar none. It is your current customers. That is your best and easiest source of revenue. If somebody's bought from you, it makes sense that they would buy from you again or keep buying from you. And yet so many entrepreneurs are so focused on always driving new business through the door that they neglect creating an amazing experience for their existing customers so that they become customers for life. And over time, that when you do create customers for life, it compounds and your financial model becomes so much more profitable, because these people are so much easier to acquire. They're more profitable. They're easier to deal with. It makes so much sense. It's easiest and best source of sustaining and growing your revenue long-term. So guys, you got to also create clear communication channels with your customers, right? So important that we work with our customers to create this process. Second group of people you need to be collaborating with, might seem obvious to some of you as well, but you need to be collaborating with your team. And again, I'm so shocked by how many CEOs or entrepreneurs are kind of like, well, this is just how we do it. Oh, this is just the way we should do it. This is just the way I think we should do it. And it's like, if you have a true team who is in the trenches working with your customers, they may actually have data and insight on what your customers want and need that you yourself do not have. Now, I always believe you should have the best pulse on your customers, but your team is going to have valuable insights. So why not collaborate with them on creating a great customer experience? A couple ways to do this is map out your customer journey, right? Some of you have never done this on the whiteboard and just gone, okay, what's step one for a customer? What's step two? How do we get them from their painful problem to their promised land? What are all the steps in that? And when you allow your team to speak into that, they're going to see things that you don't. A couple things I'm going to give you guys tips on here. You're going to really want to focus your team on is focusing on a great onboarding and initial experience. The rule of thumb here is your first 10 days of somebody doing business with you will determine whether they do business with you again. So you want to focus on that first 10 days being an incredible experience. And ultimately, guys, what we really want to build even beyond that 10 days is a culture that is obsessed with serving customers in our team. And we do this by being collaborative. If we as the leader are constantly just from the top, thinking about this, but we're never allowing our team to collaborate with us on this, they won't have buy-in, and we won't build that culture where they are obsessed too with making sure our customers have an amazing experience. Right? Last and final principle for today, guys, principle number 4 is future CEO. You've got to oversee ops through feedback loops. And we've already been talking about this all day, so I'm going to do a brief job on this one. But the reality is, guys, is that once you have ownership assigned, you have a scalable model and product, and you have a team that is focused on delivering that customer experience, and you've crafted a experience that your customers love and your team is committed to creating, now you can step back and oversee ops through feedback loops. So here are 3 feedback loops that you should have in place to keep a pulse on your operations and make sure it stays world-class even after you step out of it. Number one is I'm going to recommend you do what's called the weekly CEO scoreboard review. And this is a compilation of numbers we'll teach you guys how to create that are going to allow you to really get a great pulse on the operations of your business. Actually on multiple areas of your business, but we will have a section devoted to operations that will really just allow you to see how are things working and know that very quickly and be able to chart it over time. The second feedback loop you need in place is a place for your customers to give you feedback throughout the process. You should have a feedback process on the front end, probably in the middle or at the end. And sometimes you should have an ongoing feedback process depending on your product model. So you need to figure out, how do your customers give you feedback? And then how do you review that consistently with your teams? My recommendation is you build this into your team meeting, which will help you do in our perfect meeting template. But it's very important that you are gathering this customer feedback and then reviewing it and implementing it with your team. And then lastly, make sure there's a place for your team to give you feedback. And in our model, we call this an issues list. And it's very clear. Instead of your team popping off issues to you all the time, have a place where, unless something is truly urgent, your team can submit issues or place issues and know that they're going to get reviewed by you and that you guys are going to collaboratively solve them together. And again, we bake this into the perfect meeting template. We'll show you how to do that later. But it's very important that you have a place for your team to vulnerably, openly, and honestly share issues with you. So knowing that they're going to be solved. Okay. So there's 3 feedback loops that you guys need in place. And here are the practices based on today's training that I'm going to encourage you guys to go implement now based on what we just learned. Number one is you're going to want to revisit your 5 Ps. If you guys don't know what this is your positioning document. And again, it's what I talked about before. You know, who is your perfect patron? What is their painful problem? What is their promised land? And how does your process bridge the gap between those things? So you're going to want to know what those are. And if you don't know what those are, you're going to need to go do some interviews with clients. You're going to need to do some surveys. You're going to need to review your sales calls, whatever you need to do to truly dig deeper into this so that we can streamline all the non-important products and systems and things that we're doing with our time that do not align with that one profitable product for the one perfect patron that solves their painful problem. Number 2 is you're going to need to assess some opportunities to grow your CLTV. Some of you have tons of untapped cash in your financial model if you simply knew how to scale your products and how to create continuity or upsells within your existing customer base. And we have an optional exercise called the product model scaling blueprint that we can get to you guys. Let us know if you need that. Specifically, if you think there's lots of untapped cash in your customer base, we'll want to explore that together. So that's the second thing I'd encourage after today. Number 3 is you're going to need to assign ownership of Ops CEO. We visit this more in the team building section, so I'm not going to belabor it here, but it's very important. It's clear who owns that area. And then number 4 is you're going to need to install the 3 feedback loops we discussed. Do you have a scoreboard with your numbers? Do you have a place for customers to give feedback where it's reviewed and implemented by your team? And is there a place for your team to document issues knowing that they're going to be solved at some point? Very important. You get these feedback loops in place if you want to create a scalable model. Guys, this is how we build world-class operations, over-deliver for our clients, increase profitability with less effort. So hope today's training was super valuable to you guys. Go ahead and drop in the comments and let us know what stood out to you, what your aha moment or takeaway was. And so excited to see more world-class operational teams go out in the marketplace and over-deliver for you people you serve. Thanks, guys. Okay. Well, guys, before we close today, before I wrap this training, I just want to give you guys opportunities. Feel free to drop questions in the chat bar, in the comments. Let us know what you're thinking. Let us know what questions you have. Us and our team will follow up. And thanks so much for being a part of today's training. We hope it was incredibly valuable to you. And hey, if you're watching this and you'd like some help dialing in the operations of your business, streamlining and simplifying so you can focus on the vision more, and also maybe tapping into all of the untapped cash and revenue that's sitting in your customer base, feel free to shoot us a message. We'd love to help you do exactly that. So thanks guys for being on here today, and we'll talk to y'all soon.